The mechanical vultures circled high above, their silhouettes mimicking crows against the washed-out sky. At a glance, you'd mistake them for real birds. But if you watched them long enough, the illusion would shatter. You'd notice the unsettling stillness, the way they held a single position for far too long, defying nature. Real birds didn't have batteries that ran low. These robotic sentinels had a cry, an unnatural, grating sound that they repeated with chilling frequency. When a unit's power was fading, its cry would turn hoarse, like a chain smoker's last gasp. Initially, I believed I could simply wait them out. I would count the passing hours, finding a grim satisfaction in each raspy screech that signaled another one was dying. But as days bled into weeks, I discovered the flaw in my strategy. They were being replaced. The exchanges happened under the cloak of night, a silent, efficient process. The flock of visible birds never fell below a critical number, and that was only counting the ones I could see. I shuddered to think how many more were concealed in the dense artificial woods around us. So, during the daylight hours, we had to hide. Most often, we found refuge in caves. For some reason, the robotic birds couldn't enter the deep recesses of the rock. But as we ventured further from the central facility, the caves became scarcer. We were forced to crawl into dense thickets, burying ourselves under piles of leaves or climbing into the canopy of a bird-free tree and praying for luck. I once spent an entire day crammed inside a hollowed-out log, feeling the ceaseless tickle of beetles crawling over my skin, across my face, and even beneath my clothes. Those hours stretched into an eternity. Today, we were concealed beneath a thick blanket of crimson leaves, peering out through a tiny opening. The forest's colors were deceptively beautiful. I remembered a time when I would have appreciated it, a time when I took vacations to hike through the rainforests of Costa Rica, capturing photos of waterfalls, vibrant birds, and exotic snakes. Now, I saw the landscape through a different lens, as a source of food, a potential hiding spot, or a deadly threat. Sleep was a luxury I could rarely afford in the daytime. When exhaustion finally claimed me, my dreams were filled with nightmares of being pursued by monstrous figures with the heads of crows. I would jolt awake to find the darkness of night had fallen, and it was time to move again. We walked like ghosts through the trees, a two-member party of the weak and weary, me and my dog Max. Thank God for Max. Without him, my sanity would have fractured long ago. I found him shortly after my escape from the facility. I had naively believed that once I was outside those walls, I would be free. I never imagined the facility was nested in the heart of a vast island, a sprawling, humid forest monitored by all-seeing machines. Finding Max in those early days might have been the only thing that kept me from giving up. I reached a hand over and gently scratched him behind the ears. His tail gave a soft thump-thump against the ground, quiet enough not to alert the sentinels. He was the most intelligent dog I had ever known, staying perfectly silent and still as we hid together. Without him, I'd have been lost. His eyes could pierce the darkness, and at night, the only time the robot's optical sensors were useless, he was my guide. He led me through the labyrinthine woods, steering us clear of the human patrols that hunted me. Suddenly, the flock of mechanical birds ahead took flight. My heart leaped into my throat. That was unusual. They rarely abandon a patrol area so abruptly. I remained frozen for a long minute, listening. Max shifted beside me. It seemed the coast was clear. Carefully, I rose to my feet. Max wriggled free from the leaves and gave his body a vigorous shake. Such a good boy, to lie so patiently for hours on end. I gave him another scratch, earning another happy wag of his tail. He was a golden retriever. I had always dreamed of owning one, back when my life was just a life. Stretching my aching legs, we began to move. The sun hadn't fully set, but I was desperate to capitalize on this rare opportunity. Max trotted ahead, navigating a path through the dense undergrowth. The forest felt like a rainforest, but not quite. Real rainforests were so thick you needed a machete to move. This place was different. The growth seemed to stop at a certain uniform level, almost like a meticulously designed set in a video game, dense enough to hinder an escapee, but not so dense that they couldn't be found. A sound in a nearby bush made me freeze. Max stopped a few yards ahead, looking back with an expression that seemed to ask, "What's the holdup?" Maybe I was just hearing things. I started walking again, faster this time. Max resumed his lead, ever fearless. A few minutes later, I heard it again, clearer this time, the distinct snap of a branch being pushed aside. Then I saw a plume of red smoke rising to my left. They had found us. I broke into a dead sprint. My legs, weak from malnutrition, buckled beneath me several times, but raw fear propelled me forward. Max moved with an effortless grace, a golden blur weaving through the trees. We crashed through branches and tore through vines until, abruptly, Max skidded to a halt. I nearly collided with him. A bright light flooded my vision. As my eyes adjusted, I saw that the forest had ended. We were standing at the edge of a towering cliff. In the distance, the sun was sinking into the ocean. We had reached the end of the island, but a sheer 100-meter drop separated us from the water below. I frantically scanned left and right. Behind me, I could hear the hunters closing in, their shouts echoing through the trees. There was no path down the cliff face, only jagged outcrops of rock. The choice was simple: be captured or die trying to escape. As if reading my thoughts, Max began his descent, and I followed. The cliff was terrifyingly steep. Our only way down was to leap from one precarious rock ledge to the next. After running for so long, my body was spent. Each landing sent a shockwave of pain through my bones. Max, agile as he was also struggling. He landed on a narrow spike of rock and teetered for a moment, his claws scrambling for purchase. I risked a glance over my shoulder. 2 men now stood at the top of the cliff, rifles raised. They were yelling, pointing, but not yet shooting. I didn't know how long that courtesy would last. A sharp yelp cut through the air. I spun back around. Max was sliding off the rock spike. He tried to dig his paws in, but his grip failed. He tumbled, hitting the sharp rocks below with a sickening series of thuds before his body came to rest in a broken heap near the water's edge. It was a terrible, twisted shape. "Max!" I screamed. I threw myself forward, no longer caring if I broke my neck. My hands scraped raw as I caught myself on the same spike of rock. I hung there just long enough to find my balance before leaping again. A gunshot rang out behind me, shattering the rock I had just left. I moved like a marionette whose strings were being frantically pulled, jumping from one ledge to the next. Miraculously, I reached the bottom without killing myself. Max lifted his head toward me. "Oh, Max," I sobbed, rushing to his side and cradling his head against my chest. His fur felt hot, too hot. I looked down at his body. One of his legs was bent at an impossible angle, but where there should have been bone and blood, there was a tangled mess of gleaming metal and severed wires. He let out a cheerful bark, but something was wrong with the sound. It was hoarse, mechanical, unnatural. I scrambled backward, away from him, a cold dread washing over me. But it was too late. A second later, the robot exploded.